¿Qué tal? Bueno, voy a empezar mirándoos un poco a vosotros. Ya avisé, bueno, podéis ver todos a Claudia, que por favor confirmadme que me escucháis. Si no decís nada, pues yo supondré que sí. Ay, gracias, Monty, por la sub. Genial. Vale, pues si me escucháis, bueno, voy a hacer una pequeña introducción en español, porque, bueno, no la conoceréis, yo tampoco la conocía antes de que mi hermano me dijese, hey, ¿qué te parece traer a esta chica a un directo? Y bueno, se llama Claudia, es de Holanda, así que el directo va a ser en inglés, ¿vale? Y bueno, el resto de la introducción la va a hacer ella y vamos a aprovechar para que me digáis también si se lo escucha o no, ¿vale? Así que vamos a cambiar a inglés. Ok, hi Claudia.
Hi, good evening.
Good evening. So, first things first, how was your day?
Busy. I already analyzed a lot of data today,
Well,
so
that's good.
but I'm really excited to be here. So thanks for the invitation, and I'm really excited to show you some data, some codes, and to talk about Formula One.
Thank you for accepting our invitation and just to give us a little bit of your time to be here and teach us about this because this is not an easy subject and this is not a common subject that we talk about on my stream. So thank you so much for coming. And this is mandatory for any guests of mine. I need to ask you, how did your passion for Formula One start?
Yeah, actually, it started in 2016 when Max Verstappen was promoted to Red Bull Racing. I think it's also quite clear who I support. And maybe for the people at home, I'm Dutch, so it's quite logical that I support Max. But yeah, I was really amazed. Like it was a really big thing in the Netherlands that Max got promoted to Red Bull Racing, that he won his first race, youngest race winner ever. So that caught my attention. And then when I started to watch more races and look into the world a little bit more, I found out that data plays a really important role in Formula One. So that's where my passions basically crossed. So my passion for mathematics and my passion for Formula One. So that's it.
Yes, because, well, tell us, a little bit more about that, about what you studied and what you do right now. Like, because you work with VIR, right? Like, you
Yeah.
do small collaborations with them. So, tell us a little bit more about that.
Yeah, so let's start about my to talk about my study a little bit. So I studied business analytics in here in Amsterdam. I'm based in Amsterdam, and that's basically applied mathematics. So there I learned how to program, how to build mathematical models, how to work with data that I learned in my studies. And as an internship, I had to write a master thesis for my internship. And then I contacted VAR, like you said, Van Amersfoort Racing, to do my internship with them. And then I started a project with them, so my master thesis about finding new talents, like new drivers based on data. So I collected a lot of data about drivers, about race results, about drivers' careers, and I tried to predict which driver they needed to sign to really win championships. So that's basically what I did with them. And now, still, one day in the week, I work with them to take that project to another level. And 4 days in the week, I work for the Port of Amsterdam. So I work a lot with data of ships. Ships are, of course, not as fast as Formula One cars, but it's also really interesting world. So I work for a consultancy firm, basically, a small consultancy firm in Amsterdam. It's called Data Science Lab. and then my week is divided in 4 days Port of Amsterdam and 1 day still Van Amersfoort racing.
Well, that's amazing. I just like I mean, for me, it's fascinating. You know, like building all those models, programming all that code just to try, you know, figure out which driver, you know, should be granted a seat
Yeah,
with with the
it's
team.
really challenging, of course. It's a challenging project because, like, you have the experts at Van Amersfoort Racing. They just look at the talents in karting, and maybe they have some idea which drivers are good and which are not so good. But then, what happens if the data tells them like the complete opposite? Then you have to try to convince them, okay, but the model says this, so maybe you should give them a test. So that's really, yeah, funny to see like the interaction between the real world and what people really think and what the data says, and that we will also see later in this pit talk when I will show you some code and so on, and some results.
I I just try to picture, you know, those conversations, you know, like someone proposing a driver and you being there with the data saying, no, he crashed 4 times, causing all these problems. Don't you see this driver, however, was more consistent? Sure, this one got 3 wins. These like he didn't, but look, he was more consistent finishing races. I just think that would be like, I don't know, that's made me laugh a little bit on the inside. Maybe
Yeah.
my sense of humor is a little bit, you know, chill. I don't know.
Yeah, that would be funny. But actually, when I was doing the project, we had an interesting result. At the time I could not share it because of course it was confidential. But at the time, Oscar Piastri, it was in 2018. Oscar Piastri already came out as a really good driver, like on top of my ranking. And as we all know, next year he will be in Formula One. So that's kind of a proof that the model really works and that they really should listen to my model. Yes.
Wow, that knowing that must have been so rewarding, you know, just like to like when they announced, well, there was a fight. It wasn't just announced. There was a fight for Piastri and you've been there like, yes, my model predicted he was good. Like, yes.
Yeah.
That I can't believe that. Like you must have felt like really really proud and I don't know, and happy. Well, you can tell me.
Yes, I was, but still, I try to improve the methods I used to also now I'm still in the project with them, and now we try to find new talents for Formula 4. So it just goes on and on and on. I need to improve the models and come up with new results. So
Well, but just the job you're doing, I just think it's amazing, really. So why don't we start talking about those models? I'm just gonna warn people watching now that there's gonna be a small like you're gonna see cameras a little bit odd because I'm gonna change scenes and she's gonna share her screen. So while this gets adjusted, it's gonna be a weird image on Twitch for you guys. So yeah, just bear with me, okay? So whenever you're ready, just start sharing your screen.
yeah.
Okay, good. So yeah, that the change was smoother than I anticipated, which makes me happy. Because I'm not friends with the program with OBS, so yay.
So, but you can see my code now.
Yes, we can see your code. Um, I'm just gonna. I think we can see. Yeah, we can see from top. Yeah. Okay. Yeah, we can see it.
Okay.
Okay,
So
so
let's
yeah,
start
introduce
with a
us to the
short
first.
introduction.
Yes, start.
Yeah, so what I want to do is actually show you and also all the people at home what data is available for us as Formula One fans and basically what we can do with it. Because of course, like Formula One for us is kind of a secret world. They try to hide all the technology as much as possible, of course not share the data, but still there's a lot out of there. So what I did, there's it's a Python library, we call that, and there a lot of data is available for us. So even the data that we can see in the official Formula One app, I'm not sure if you use it, but there you have a lot of data about results, telemetry data, even like strategies, pit stop strategies, tires. So even that kind of data is available for us as Formula One fans. If we use that Python library that I mentioned, it's called Fast F1. So what I try to do is, even for the people that doesn't have a lot of experience with programming, I try to show to give a first look how you can work with the data, what you can do, and you will see, even without really understanding the code, you can understand what's going on and what we try to do. So yeah, that's a short introduction, and we will just look into qualifying data, race strategies, all that kind of stuff. So yeah.
Good. And at some point, we will introduce a question, and the first one who gets it right, the first one who writes the answer correctly on the chat will get this miniature model. Of course, it's a Red Bull, and of course, it's Max Verstappen. Just in case anyone wanted to, was wondering if we had Checo's or Max's car, but we got Max's car, and it's from, I think it's 2021 season, so it's got the 33 on it. But yeah, so if you answer a question correctly, write it down correctly, in the chat, and you're the first one to guess it, I'll send you this car. Okay, so I have it here just to prove that I have it. Okay, so now, Claudia, please.
Yeah.
Continue.
So we go to the code.
Yeah.
Let's look into some code, some data, and some analysis. So basically what you see here, for people that don't know, is Python code. And we start just with the setup, and we import some libraries. It's not really interesting. The most important library we need is the Fast F1 library, because that's where all our data is. Let me run this fast. Okay, so what are we going to do? We are going to analyze the qualifying session of the Abu Dhabi Grand Prix. So it's the last one that is most fresh in our memory. And what I can do is just ask for all data of the qualifying session of Abu Dhabi. So that's quite easy. It's not a lot of code. I can just run it, and then it loads all my data. You see it here, loading data for Abu Dhabi Grand Prix. Data for 20 drivers. So we have all data available. And then what we can just do is we can ask, okay, what was the pole lap? So I run this, you see. So here we can see, okay, this was the pole lap. This is the time. This is the lap time.
Okay.
And the driver that drove the pole lap, of course, is Max Verstappen. And it's interesting because we can see all kind of things, like the time for the first sector, the second sector, the third sector, even the type of tires he used, the tire life, so how old the tires were. All kinds of data is in this pole lab. Okay. So that's quite interesting. But what is of course more interesting is, like, okay, Max had the pole time, but what was the difference with the other drivers? So what we can do is, this is some code to ask for every driver, okay, what was the fastest lap for every driver? And then what we can do is compute the difference. So what we can see is that Sergio Perez, for example, the first driver here, the gap was 0.2 of a second with Max. And what I also did is like, this is hard to read, so we can try to visualize it in a graph. The order is a little bit strange, but here you can see that like Max was fastest, and then you had Paris, he was two tenths of a second behind, and then you also have the other drivers who was slowest. This was Latifi, he was slowest, 2.2 seconds behind. So this is basically just visualizing the the results of the qualifying session.
Yeah, and I'm sure not just me, but almost everyone here in the chat has seen this graph on Twitter or anywhere. So this is like the exact graph that people can just extract like that. Latif is lowest, but a surprise. Yeah. Yeah, but that's actually amazing.
Yeah, so this is not really surprising, but what we can also do that is way more interesting, I think, is we can compare laps of drivers, of course, because all drivers are pushing. In some parts of the track, they are winning time. In some parts of the track, they are losing time, compared to Max Verstappen. So what I also did is like I compared, for example, the fastest laps of Max and the fastest lap of Paris. So here I just ask for Max's fastest lap is pole lap, and this is the lap that Paris was two tenths of a second behind. And what's also interesting from this library is that we can even ask for telemetry data. So that is really detailed data that is just available for every Formula One fan. And maybe it's a little bit hard to read also for me because I'm a data scientist. I'm not a racing expert in that in that sense. So, but what's really interesting to see also for us as a fan is, for example, if you look into it, I'm not sure if you can really see it because it's quite small maybe, but here you see, for example, that Max braked earlier than Paris because you see the dark blue line, that's Max Verstappen, and here also. So that is interesting to see if Max brakes earlier all the time, maybe that's faster and that leads to his pole position. So you
Well,
see that he brakes earlier and then maybe goes on throttle earlier. And yeah, maybe that's where he really won the time and where he won the pole position.
what strikes me the most about this telemetry, that because this is the fastest lap, like for both drivers, is that Max hit the brakes at a very strange, at a very strange time there. Yeah.
Yeah. To be honest, I think this is a measurement error. So this is a really good question actually, because when working with data, you will see data is not always really clean. Sometimes you have measurements errors, and some noise that you have to deal with. So I think, to be honest, this is an example of that because
Yeah, that
it's
should
almost
be because,
impossible he hit the brake there.
yeah, such a big and short, also, it's a very short time with his foot
Yeah,
on the brake. That would have cost him time for sure.
yeah, yeah, true.
So it wouldn't
So
have
yeah.
been. Yeah, that's great.
So this is the telemetry data we can look into, but what we also can do is, for example, what can be quite interesting is comparing sector times. Because in this case it was quite interesting that Max, here you see a bar chart of the difference in sector time. So per sector you see the difference, and when it's negative, it's then Max Verstappen is faster, and when it's positive, Perez is faster. And you can see, like here in the first and third sector, Max was the fastest driver, but in the second sector, Paris was actually better. So that's also nice to see in which parts of the circuit both drivers were better. And maybe you can see like, okay, this driver is maybe faster in corners, but this driver is, or maybe the car is faster in straight line. So that are kind of interesting things also to look at. And it gets even more interesting if we consider the whole track and then really look into what parts of the circuit Max was faster and Paris was faster. So even in more detail, we can do that actually also by looking at the telemetry data and the speeds in the different parts of the circuit. And what I did here is I was just looking. I divided the whole track in 25 small pieces actually, and for each small piece, I looked at the speed of both drivers, and then if the speed is higher, that's the fastest driver, and then I tried to visualize that in this plot. So just in this graph, I put the positions of the car, and then the track forms itself. So I even have the position like the X and Y coordinates, maybe for the people that are more into mathematical things. I even have that from the car. And then if you visualize it on just in a normal graph, you can visualize actually the track. So what you can see here is that the blue parts, Max was faster, and the green part, Sergio Perez was faster. So here you see, I think start finish is somewhere here. Then you indeed see that like in the first sector, you see a lot of blue, and in the second sector, you see a lot of green, and in the third sector, you see again a lot of blue. So that's quite interesting to see. It is really detailed, like which part of the track, which driver was faster. At least I found it like really interesting to see when I was working on this.
Yeah. No, actually it is, because seeing the gap on the previous graph, like the gap, the third sector was huge. But now there's a huge chunk that belongs to Sergio Perez, to Checo. So, yeah.
Yeah, basically what you kind of see is that Sergio was faster on the straights,
Yeah.
like this big straight, and here in the really curvy part of the circuit, Max was faster. So that's quite interesting because I mean they should have a similar car, right? It's both Red Bull, but this gives me the idea that they had some configurations really different.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, so please ask Claudia if this data, what about the driver's racing style, and which part it's the car's setup. I'm not getting, I'm not understanding correctly. This data, what about the driver's racing style, and which part is the car? I don't try to reformulate real quick. Yeah, so he's gonna ask in Spanish. Okay, ¿qué parte influye? Okay, so based on this data, can you figure out like which like the amount of time from the lap time, like it's more on the driver's side, like the skill and driving and the style, and which part is more dependent on the car? I don't know if I got it correctly or not.
Yeah, so I think that is really difficult to analyze because data about the setup of the car, the configuration of the car is not available. So we don't know in what sense the cars are different from each other. And then it's hard to also distinguish in the driver performance. But like if I think of Formula One, then I feel like when you have similar cars, it's driver performance that matters. And of course, I say that as a Max Verstappen fan because that means in this case Max Verstappen is better. But that's what I think. I think the cars are really close to perfect, and then the difference what you can make is driver talent. That I would say, if you're talking about the same car, the same team.
Yeah, and also we were asked, what do you think about the data steal? About stealing data. I don't know which sense you mean. Jose Antonio, you can just like ask it in Spanish and I'll try to translate it as best as I can and as fast as I can, of course, to English. And also, I saw a question earlier, which was more on what do you prefer, of having like a strong car right off with little improvement, or a midfield car but improve really fast during this season. I think the idea comes of what would you rather have? A car like Ferrari, like was really strong at the beginning of the season, but kind of like got stuck there, or more like a Mercedes or Mercedes, to pronounce it in English, that was like kind of midfield, but improved really fast and really good and really steady throughout the season.
And the question is from the perspective of the team, or more from the perspective as me as a data scientist? Imagine that I'm part of the team as a data scientist.
Yeah, as a data scientist.
Like as a data scientist, of course, it's amazing if your data can, or your models or your results can lead to those improvements. So then I would say I prefer Mercedes, because then, okay, the car's not so good, but you can try a lot of things and see what is the result, and you can really see like what your models can do to improve the car. Well, with Ferrari, I have the idea that they are a little bit lost, or at least last season they were a little bit lost. So
Okay. And okay, and so they were asking about the data stealing. Like, they suppose it's like when a team steals data from another team.
sorry, I
think.
didn't really understand the question.
What do you think about data steal, or I would say stealing data from another team? Like
Oh,
when those things happen, when one team steals data from another team and things like that.
I think it's smart. First of all, smart, because there's a lot of value in the data, of course. But I'm not sure. Like, I know they steal sometimes the designs, but I'm not sure if they really steal the data. I think that's really difficult. Also, when you see in the free practice sessions, they really try to hide everything. So they don't share how much fuel is in the car and that kind of stuff. So I'm not sure how easy it is to steal data from another team. And I'm also not sure if it really happens. Yeah. But
Okay.
I think if it's smart. I mean, if it's legal.
that was a really important part of the smart thing, of the smart statement, for it to be like, first it has to be legal, then sure, it's smart. Okay. I'm actually quite impressed of what you can do just with the data that it's available. And I can see people here watching the stream cannot see it, but I can see a small tab there saying qualifying Monaco 2022.
Yeah.
So, and I am quite interested in that. I'm interested in what you did with the data that is available for all of us. So I'll just ask that question that you have on top of the
Yeah.
library, and then I'll let you answer the question. So,
Okay.
Claudia, did Sergio Perez crash on purpose in Monaco?
Okay. Let's look into the data. Yeah, so again, what I did is, to answer that question, I loaded some data now from the qualifying session in Monaco. And basically what I did, I mean, okay, during that, it's about Q3. There has been some rumors that maybe Sergio Perez crashed on purpose to be in front of Max. That has been lately, since Brazil, the Grand Prix in Brazil, the rumor started a little bit. And what actually happened, maybe if some people don't really remember, Perez already had a quite good lap, quite fast lap in Q3, and then the next lap he crashed near the tunnel. So basically what I did is I picked Perez's fastest lap, so that's basically the lap before he crashed, his fastest lap so far, and then I looked at the lap that Perez actually crashed. And then we can compare the telemetry data and actually see if we see some differences in there. So I already made a graph of the throttle. This is most interesting to look at. And maybe it's nice if I ask you, Guada, if you already can see, like, if something is off.
So this is the throttle, right?
Yeah, this is the throttle.
I see, like, there is a strange throttle near the, like, near the end of the graph for the crash line, because there are two, like,
Spikes.
peaks. Yeah, there are two spikes. They're really close together in gap. There are two spikes, and then, like, there are two spikes where they shouldn't really be any spike. Like, if we compare it to the fastest lap.
Correct. So you're really close to become a data scientist, I think.
That get me another major. Let's go. two aren't enough. Let's get a third one. Sure, why not?
So actually what you see is the blue line is the fastest lap so far. And in the lap that he crashed, you see these big spikes in throttle. So that's strange. That stands out. But it is still really difficult then to draw conclusions from that. Of course, it can be that he hit the throttle on purpose and that he crashed on purpose, but can also be maybe he had a problem with the car. You don't know that. Or maybe he just took more risk to go earlier on the throttle. So then it's still really, for us as fans, okay, we see this happening in the data, but it's really difficult still to draw conclusions. So I'm sorry, Guada, I don't really have an answer to the question.
So, like, this is, like, the only information you can gather from the data available on the Formula One web page, right? Because that's something we were asked before. How reliable is this data? Where is it coming from? It is coming from the Formula One page. It is available for everyone to gather and play with it around. And how reliable this data is. We already kind of went through a little bit with that when you mentioned that sometimes like, you can have noise. You can have background noise and you have to clean it a little bit. Did you clean at all and anything, like, from the data, from, like, for the graph that you're showing us, or it just came from the page?
Yeah, this is data that really came from actually it's called the Fast F1 Python library. They provide the data from the Formula One app to us. So this is basically the raw data. But if the people really want to continue with this and do their own analysis, I would recommend to just to go to the GitHub of the Fast F1 library, and there they also state something about the reliability of the data, what you can do to validate if the data is correct. So there is much more information about this, and also from the people that actually worked on this and providing the data.
Okay, thank you. And now, as another tab, maybe you can introduce us to this one.
Yeah, so we did some analysis about qualifying. We looked into fastest lap and comparing the lap. So now actually we want to move on to analyzing the race, because of course that's where the points get scored. So that's also interesting. And what's really interesting in general about analyzing races is, of course, the race strategy, because also the Formula One teams run a lot of simulations, mathematical models, predictions to come up with the best race strategy. So that's really interesting from a data point of view. And I didn't mention it in the beginning, but in the past I also worked on a study-related project of simulating Formula One race strategies. I wrote a paper on that. So I did quite some research in this kind of data, and I just want to show you, how you can analyze this a little bit, the race strategies. And again, we look at the Abu Dhabi Grand Prix because it's most fresh in our memory. And there also something interesting was happening because we had a fight between Paris and Leclerc on the about the second place in the World Championship.
A
So that's
fight I followed really, really closely and really, really like very closely and a little bit anxiously also.
yeah, because you're a Leclerc fan, right?
Yes! It's the first time I didn't say it. I guess said it. So thank you for that.
So in this case, in the end, you won. But yeah, I think it was a really exciting fight also to have that in the last race because I mean Max was already world champion like long ago.
I
Um,
believe he was world champion from way like early on the championship. As soon as I saw Charles like stuck in Paul Ricard, like hit the wall. As soon as he crushed that car, I was like, yeah, this is done. Like
yeah.
we're done here.
Yeah, but still in the end he finished in second, and let's just see how that went during the
Okay.
last race. So yeah, actually what I can do is also load some race data. So you see here from the Abu Dhabi the race data I loaded. I will not run this again because it takes some time to run all code. And basically what we can do from the data also, we know what tire all drivers used at some point in the race. So we can also visualize that. So here, this is like here in the x-axis, you see the lap number of the race, and here you see basically the stints, so the tires that were
Yeah.
used.
And
Uh,
I see a very sad spot there, right? Just right there, like bam.
Here, yeah,
Yeah,
here he
yeah,
tired.
yeah.
Yeah, he didn't make it to the end. Yeah. But
Sad.
yeah, what you can also see is like the colors is just
Yeah.
the tire compounds we are used to.
Hmm.
And what was really interesting was that Leclerc chose to have a one stop, so make one pit stop, first on the medium tire and then on the hard tire. And Perez, he chose, or like basically the team chose, to do a two-stop pit stop strategy. So first on the medium tires and then two times on the hard tires. And basically what his mission was to catch Leclerc on fresh tires.
Hmm. Yeah, because that strategy had already worked in 2021 with Max Verstappen and Hamilton. I don't remember the race. It wasn't this one, of course. It wasn't Abu Dhabi, but it had worked previously. So
Yeah,
I think it was a good shot. And I remember Ferrari telling Leclerc to do the opposite that Perez did. So if Perez hadn't stopped, Leclerc would have stopped. And who knows what would have happened.
so yeah, because in the end we saw that Paris couldn't catch Leclerc anymore, and I looked into basically how that happened. So yeah, what I did is I compared the lap times because here you can also see red is Leclerc. He made one pit stop and Paris made two pit stops. And basically after the second pit stop, he had a certain gap. Paris had, of course, a certain gap to Leclerc, and he had to be faster than Leclerc on his new tire to catch him. So basically what I did, after his pit stop, the second pit stop was in lap 34, then he had 24 laps to go, and Leclerc was approximately 20 seconds ahead of Paris. So then we can just compute by dividing 20.7 by 24 that Paris needed to be around 8/10 of a second faster per lap than Leclerc to catch him. So that was like his mission, his job, what he needed to do to end up in second place. But what we can also compute is that in reality, if we look at the lap times and we compare the lap times, he was only on average 0.77 seconds faster than Leclerc. So that's not the 0.86 seconds he needed. And we can also see where he lost the time. It's also interesting to look at. So we can visualize in a graph. This is maybe a little bit difficult to read. But the purple or the blue line is the difference in lap time. And when it's the red line is like 0. So when it's positive, that means that Paris was actually faster than Leclerc. And when it's below the red line, when it's negative, Leclerc was actually faster. And the green line is the
goal.
0.86 I compute. So that should be like the average time he gained. But what you can see is like, okay, it went quite well in the beginning, he was faster, but then you see a big drop. And he was even here in lap 45, he was slower than Leclerc. And that was actually caused by the fight he had with Lewis Hamilton. He was fighting with him to overtake him, and that just cost him a lot of time. And I think without that, or if he could have overtaken Lewis faster, I think he even made a mistake. He braked and braked too late, made a mistake in that. That's where he lost most time. Without that, maybe he could have catched
Because you
Leclerc.
just said like the average he did was 0.77, and he needed a 0.86 on
Yeah,
average.
but of course the average is really influenced by this like big drop.
Yeah,
This
yeah, but
happened.
still, it's kind of still amazing. Like the goal was 0.8 and he got a 0.77.
Yeah, he was close, but it was not enough. At the
Yeah,
end of the race, the gap was still 2.26 seconds, so it was not enough.
yeah,
And Leclerc won. Yeah.
yeah. Luckily, yeah. He won.
Luckily for
Wow,
you.
I didn't know that average gap time. That really just like threw me off. And I have Lewis Hamilton something to thank for. So yeah.
Yeah.
We
Maybe send him a thank you card or gift.
maybe who knows? Oh wow. Okay. Uh. Thank you. And before we launch the question, because I don't want to give these people a lot of time, um, they asked a few questions like, how useful is the teammate data for a driver?
Sorry, what kind of data?
How useful is the teammates data for a driver? Like if I were driving for Red Bull, how useful would be Max's data to me?
I think that is really useful. I also, when you look at like the qualifying session, you sometimes also see they get the paper with literally the data. So yeah, that is really where they try to improve their driving style, I think.
Hmm.
And because the teammate has the same car, that the difference, what I already said before, the difference is the driving style, the talent of the driver, just small adjustments. So I think it's really useful.
Yeah, and they ask like if a driver can surpass your models. So did you ever predict a driver to do not so well and then ended up doing quite a good job?
Yeah, of course. Because yeah, what also happened when I was working at Van Amersfoort Racing is that I had drivers that only had results in karting. And then, yeah, if you don't have a lot of data, it's really difficult to predict. And also, karting is not the same as single-seater championships like Formula 4. So, yeah, in general, the rule is the more data, the better you can predict. And if you don't have a lot of data from a driver, then it's always difficult.
Mm. And have you ever worked with simulator data?
No, not really. I have been in a simulator once at Van Amersfoort Racing. And then, yeah, I looked a little bit at they showed me the data and what they look at. I know they use like baseline data to compare the drivers with. But apart from that, no, not really.
So you don't like, but could you tell, well, maybe you can, maybe you cannot, how reliable that data is, or how much the team trusts that data?
I think that data is really reliable. I think the simulators nowadays are really good. Like the tracks are really close to reality. You also see it because you have the Formula or the
Mm.
E Championship
Yeah.
that they just race against each other, and sometimes they even have a driver there and they put him in the car and he turns out to be really good. So I think it's really close to yeah what driving a race car actually
Mm.
is, and the data is reliable because of the technology moving so fast.
Mm. And this is just from a personal uh perspective question, because I'm finishing my second degree right now, my second undergrad right now, and I just ask this question to anyone I encounter. Um, how difficult was it for you to enter like your world? I would, for the purpose of the pit talk, I would say from like the Formula 2, Formula 3, like the VAR team, like how difficult is it to enter, to work in motorsport and as a data scientist, because we usually see the engineers, like the structural engineers, the aerodynamics engineers, we see the mechanics, uh, but I don't think we see like the data scientists, the data analyst, as much as we do other jobs. So how hard was that, and what was the path that you followed to get this collaboration? You already said like you did an internship, but how did you find the internship and all that all that stuff?
Yeah, basically what I did was I just sent the email to Van Amersfoort Racing that I wanted to do my internship there. And then it was just a coincidence that they already were looking into doing something with data science. They already had a project in mind to find new drivers with data. So that was just a perfect match. So I was just really lucky. But I
So
think in
really the
general,
stars aligned for
yeah,
you at
just
that
go
moment.
for it. That I would say, just go for it. Just send the email. Yeah, try to contact the right people.
Mm.
If you really are ambitious and you have an idea and a goal, just go there and try to achieve it.
And have you met any data scientists from Formula One, or
Yes,
they?
actually,
Okay.
I did.
So
Yeah, because
you probably asked them a lot of questions. Maybe you can tell us a little bit more, like I bet they travel. Some of them travel with the team, probably.
no,
No, they
nah,
never. They stay
I think
remotely.
Yeah, I think in general, the data science department is part of the factory team. So they just like kind of stay home. It's support, yeah, it's supporting the racing
So
team, but it's not really part of the racing team in general.
so when we're talking about making decisions, um, like during the race, like the pit stops and that, like just the data scientist just stays there on the factory and analyzes the data before the race or after the race. They don't come up with anything like for the race, like at that moment, or they are connected remotely.
Yeah, like what happens is the data scientists are in the end not the persons that make the decisions. If you look, for example, at a Red Bull Racing, you have Hannah Smith, amazing race strategist, I think. And just the goal is to provide that kind of persons, like in Red Bull is Hannah Smith, but in other teams are other persons. It's just to provide them with the right data. I think that is what happens. Of course, I don't work at a Formula One team, but I can imagine a little bit how it works. And that is key, like to provide them with the right information at the right time to make that kind of decisions, important decisions that can lead to a race victory. Um, under such level of pressure. That is really amazing, and that is also something that is really my dream, to work in that kind of environment. And to be part of the Formula One team, that my data and my models and my results really can lead to that kind of decisions. That would be amazing for me. Yeah.
And how does that information that you provide at that moment, like, what happens when a safety car comes in? Like, how fast, like, you have to react, or how do you, like, because probably you have your data already set for the race, and then something happens. How do you reformulate all that data in a matter of, well, this person asked in minutes, in seconds, like in a split of a second, you need to have the information to make a decision. Well, Hannah, for example, Hannah needs the information to make a decision. How do you reformulate that? Reformulate? I don't think that's the actual, I don't know. Sorry, it's just my brain gonna shut down. My brain gonna shut down for a minute there.
Now, what I think that happens is that they already they run a lot of simulations. What I read online from Red Bull Racing, for example, they run millions of simulations in a race weekend. So probably what happens is that they have all scenarios available. They already run everything in advance. What happens if Ferrari does this pit stop strategy? What happens if a safety car comes? What happens if it's going to rain? So they have all that kind of things already available. I can imagine that. Of course, there are some unexpected things that can happen, and maybe then they just run new simulations, like at that time, like really real time. I can imagine that it's something like that. But this kind of things, how it works in detail and what kind of information they have, it's really secret, of course, because they don't want other teams to know. It gives them a really big advantage in that kind of sense.
So, and they're asking, why does Ferrari fail so much in strategy? Like, they want to know, like, as, you know, your point of view as a strategist, because that's in the end what you are, even if your main field of work with VAR has been selecting, you know, like picking drivers, that's still like kind of strategy-ish, you know, because, you know, planning for the future. So why do you think Ferrari fails so much?
So of course I think they should hire me. No, I'm not sure, but if I look what I can see from Red Bull Racing, for example, just by seeing Hannah making decisions and read things about that online, I can see that they are really like mature in getting the right information in time at the pit wall. So I think I'm not really thinking that Ferrari is doing a really bad job. I just think that Red Bull Racing is doing a really, really good job.
Really good job. Yeah.
When working with data.
And we have talked a lot about Hannah, and there's also a question. Well, let's make our question first. Let them try and guess while I ask you the last question. That it's really good question actually to some, like, to close, I think, this bit talk. So please, Claudia.
Yeah.
Because I almost forgot about the price. Like okay, sorry.
That happens when you get lost with data.
Yeah.
No, our question is, during this season, the 2022 season, which driver gained most positions in the first lap? So
Okay,
the first lap of the race over the whole 2022 season.
Okay,
That's the question. So you can choose from 20 drivers. Which drivers gained most position?
Okay, so I'll ask the question in Spanish now for them.
Okay.
Por si no lo habéis entendido, ¿qué piloto de la parrilla ganó más posiciones en la primera vuelta? Es decir, si juntamos todas las posiciones ganadas en las primeras vueltas de todas las carreras. ¿Vale? O sea, no solo en plan cogiendo una, ¿vale? Así que nada, mandad vuestros guesses y yo os avisaré, ¿vale? O sea, id mandando, vamos a seguir haciendo preguntas y al final desvelaré quién ha ganado, ¿ok? So, let them guess a little bit.
Yeah.
And yeah, we'll let them guess. And now I'll ask you this question. It's a bit different, and I was wondering when it was about to come up, because it was about to come up. So you are our first female guest in our pit talk, and that is also kind of a reflection of women in motorsport. So the question is, what like why do you think so there are not so many women in Formula One world? Like, they're trying to improve it. Like, I just don't think it's in Formula One. I think it's in is the current situation of women in motorsport. Um, the situation is changing. That is true. Every year we're coming with more female engineers, female. Um, I don't reckon seeing any female mechanic. Maybe there are some more female streamers talking about Formula One. Um, but what do you think it's the main problem, or why do you think this situation is there?
Yeah, I think actually the problem is a little bit bigger than only Formula One, because if you look into it, like the engineering positions that are really technical jobs. Also, data science is like really, yeah, technical job. It has to do with programming, mathematics, and the same holds for engineering jobs. So I think the problem is a little bit bigger than only Formula One. It's just the fact that yeah, girls and women tend to choose not the technical jobs. That I think is really the problem, because I think if you start to encourage them to do that, you will have more women in the studies related to Formula One, and then in the end, it's they will end up in Formula One, I think. I mean, because there are a lot of women that like Formula One and are interested, but I think, yeah, the problem is just in the education and choosing the right jobs to end up in this kind of worlds.
Hmm. Thank you. So I can see some people joining in now. I'm just gonna ask the question again in Spanish. I'm just letting you know, so maybe they can guess again. Hola, Scream, ¿no? Sí, vale. ¿Puedes decirnos qué piloto ha ganado más posiciones en la primera vuelta de todas las carreras, juntando todas las carreras? ¿Puedes decirnos cuáles? ¿Qué piloto es el que gana más posiciones? No sé si lo he hecho bien o no, mi cerebro está un poco saturado de todo el día, pero espero que, que hayas entendido la pregunta. Okay, so going back to the encouragement part of it, I also I always have the same thought pops to my mind every single time I hear about this, because I went to an all girls school. We were all girls there. And like, I think it was just me in my year. I don't know, like, I never knew any other girl at my school that liked Formula One, that was even slightly interested in Formula One. I have met several women interested in engineering, because we were maybe 180 girls, 150 girls per year. So, and you couldn't really say there was anything in the school environment that discouraged us from choosing whatever path we wanted. We had a technological high school, like I don't know how the school years go, like how they're planned in your country yeah. So, but for my school, like, the technical options were filled with like two whole classes of girls wanting to study at first engineering and all those sort of things. Another two classes for the girls that wanted to go more like biology, medicine, nursing school, and all that stuff. And then two classes for social sciences. So we got like more than half of us wanted to go through more STEM branches and STEM options, but then only a bunch of us got into engineering courses. I chose like more of a health branch. I studied biotechnology and pharmacy, but still biotechnology is considered a STEM science because it is a STEM science. But like you couldn't say there's this discouraged from the education standpoint right there, but more overall like at an interest first. Because I don't know, I have met along the way a lot of women interested, of course, in Formula One, but still, in motorsport in general, men are just more interested in those sports. It's just kind of an overall interest. There's a reason like why like women are not that interested in this motorsports, and that's just like reality. That's just like facts. Like I know probably 3, 4 more men, like times more men that enjoy Formula One than women. And maybe this is also kind of a problem, that motorsport as a whole is not interesting. No, to us, or maybe like maybe we need something that make women more interested. I don't know if it's just like the way it is advertised, or I don't know. There's something there that maybe if more people watched it and liked it, more women would be like, oh, that's what I want to do. Because every single person that I know that wants to wants to enter a Formula One team to work as an engineer, as a mechanic, their stories all start with, I watched this one race and I was hooked. I watched Fernando Alonso win and I wanted to build him a car. But
Yeah, of
I don't
course,
know why it's not
of course
just
it's
that
possible that
interesting.
it's a difference in interest.
So
I mean,
maybe, I
yeah,
don't know, with female journalists, female casters, female broadcasters, maybe it will be more appealing. And
yeah, and I think what's also really important, but then I look at my job as a data scientist, is to show girls already on a young age, for example, what you can do with programming. Because if you ask a girl like that is young on primary school, yeah, you want to learn how to program, of course, they don't know what they can do with it. So it's not really interested or interesting to start with it. So I think that is one thing we need to do, like bring programming to primary schools. I mean, they don't need to program really difficult things. You have like programming languages for children just to learn how to think, yeah, as a programmer. So that's a really good start. And then I think girls also need role models, like Hannah Smith, for example, because then you can see as a girl what is yeah, what you can achieve. And yeah,
and
what I have
also
seen
Formula
in,
motorsport in general is a very niche sport. It's not very common. Like I remember my boyfriend when we started dating, he wasn't interested at all. And now he's hooked. Because,
yeah,
for him, Formula One was just a bunch of cars going like running laps and just like that was it. And there's like, no, but wait, because this can happen. But wait, because this implies this and this changes that, and now. So, yeah, I
what I
think.
also hear from a lot of people that they were watching the
Oh, yeah.
Netflix series Drive to Survive, and then they were like, oh, Formula One is actually it's more than cars just doing
Going
that.
around in circle, yeah.
Yeah, and then they thought, oh, maybe let's watch a race,
Mm,
and then they were hooked. And
yeah.
also a lot of people in the Netherlands, I know, they watched the last race of last season, of course, when Max Verstappen when he won his first championship title, and then they were like, whoa, this is amazing Formula One, and now they are just addicted. They watch every race, and
Yeah.
then they see. also Max Verstappen, if I look at my country, he did a lot for Formula One. I mean, we have so many fans now, also a lot of women. So yeah, for that, it has been really good that
Yeah,
yeah,
I
Max
think a
has been
similar,
so
yeah, a
successful.
similar thing happened with Fernando here.
Yeah.
When he
Oh yeah,
won,
I can
yeah.
imagine. Yeah, of course.
Yeah, so okay, here Jaime is saying motorsport was always in history focused for male supporters, but nowadays Formula One is trying to get all kind of fans. Yes, and we can see this, and this is gonna sound a little bit bad, but like we know what they're doing with Ferrari, with the community manager. I don't know if you have seen. I don't know if you're on Twitter. Maybe they posted it as well on Instagram, showing like snaps, of drivers getting into the cold baths, to the ice baths, and really showing off a lot of their drivers. And it's like, and this is working not just for women, but for a lot of men. Because I have a gay friend that was just like, I saw this picture. And he showed me Charles Leclerc. Like, who is he? Like, I think you talked about him. Like, oh yeah, he's the Ferrari. Yeah, he's a Ferrari driver. He was like, I need to watch this sport. And it's like, yeah, maybe you do. So maybe like they're trying to change that into approach and make it more like open for everyone. And I think Liberty Media also tried to do that and open um, the competition to United States, for example, with more races there and stuff. But yeah, like I think what should be really the problem is that like for women, of course, it's also like the challenge of a male dominated um, field. The same way that I think as male nurses, for example, like
Yeah,
go
of course.
to, because nursing it's a pretty much female dominated field. Or maybe even teaching, like for kindergarten and stuff, I just encounter way more female teachers, kindergarten teachers than male. Um, the challenge they can be to get into a no opposite gender dominated field, and also how attractive it is to the general audience, and maybe even from smaller categories, because Formula One, you can really just ask anyone to tell you something about Formula One and they will probably say something, even if it's just Lewis Hamilton or Max Verstappen or Michael Schumacher, they would probably know something. But you ask them for Formula 2, Formula 3, former W Series now, I think it's going to be like Formula 1 Academy thing, and they probably won't say anything. Like they probably won't tell, like they won't be able to tell you anything.
And actually, I think Formula 2 and Formula 3 sometimes are even more exciting than Formula 1 to
Oh
watch.
yeah, definitely
Yeah,
races are more exciting. That's for
yeah.
a lot of times they're more exciting, that's for sure. I know a couple of people that would say yes without a doubt. And yeah, I think to kind of sum up this small like chat that we had is making this sport more um like a better presentation for everyone, to attract all audiences, especially I would say children. They're probably essential, for the continuity of the sport. And then yeah, the encouragement, and not just like, I can only say this from my perspective, how I was raised and brought up, but bringing programming and coding and all the data science, in to schools can be really good, to encourage women and of course everyone to do these kind of things, because I think it's amazing. I also like the last part, like the that 0.03 that gave Charles Leclerc the second position. But yeah, thank you. And Formula 2 and Formula 3 races with young drivers full of rush and trying to get Formula 1 place, that means spectacular show. Sometimes it is. And then you have Nisani, which can be like little, you don't know what's gonna happen there with him. So yeah, thank you very much for your comment. And would you please make the honor to announce who got the most
Yeah,
apps? Because I know
course.
there's a tab there.
We go to everyone put the answer in the chat?
Yeah, they entered it, but
Okay.
please reveal it
You
for
already
us.
know if someone has the right answer or
Yep,
no? Yeah, okay.
I already know.
So we go to the results. So what I did was I collected data about the starting positions on the grid for every race. And then I looked at the position after the first lap. And then I just looked at the difference. And we go right to the results because a lot of data, as you can see. And we can see that was actually Lance Stroll that gained the most positions during the last season.
Yeah, so that means that 21 Lauren got it right. They got it correctly, so yay! One of my mods, please just if you can contact this person to see if we can send them the model car, and if not, just I think someone else also got it right. Rakeni got it right, and I don't know. Sorry, it's so funny because someone in chat is really shocked about Bottas. Bottas situation got them really, really shocked. Okay,
Yeah.
and we got the backup just in case. And if not, I think we'll just like kind of like announce it on Twitter, like, hey, who wants this? Do something like random and we'll get it sorted. So yeah. Wow. It was Stroll, and then it was Albon. Someone got Albon as their guess, and it was not that bad. It was a good
No.
guess. Just two
Yeah.
positions there.
Yeah.
And yeah, they also mentioned Latifi, which actually I was kind of shocked when I saw the graph and it was the third driver to
Yeah.
gain more positions on
What
the
is
first lap.
funny with this kind of questions is that usually the best drivers are not on top in this kind of data
Yeah.
because the drivers that start in front, they cannot gain a lot of positions. Usually the drivers that start in the back can gain a lot of positions. So
Yeah, we can see Leclerc that he lost.
yeah.
Actually, that makes sense because he like got pole position many times, but did not finish first many times. So that makes a lot of sense.
Yeah.
And Max is on the positive side of the scale. Same way Leclerc is in the negative one, Max is on the positive one because he didn't have as many pole positions
Yeah.
as Charles did. And yeah, thank you. I mean, if he always start last, he can only gain positions. Yeah, that's what Claudia here meant, of course. But still, it's I'm impressed with Stroll really because I would have pictured Albon more on that side because I think Albon is slightly better. But yeah, thank you. I don't know if
Yeah.
anyone
That's
has.
a personal opinion, of course. Huh?
Yeah. It's a
This is
personal
what
opinion, of
the
course.
data say.
Everything I say is just a personal opinion. I am not data scientist who can say it's not just a personal opinion. Here's the data. Here's the data for you to make the right decision. So they're asking, should Alonso start looking at Stroll's data?
I think when you want to gain a lot of position in the first lap, he's a good driver to look into.
Yeah, I really think that put as like race 1, 2, it's gonna be Stroll looking at Alonso's data. I'm quite sure that's what's gonna happen. Okay, so I just one more thing. I remember when we had our first conversation, our first Zoom meeting, that you talked about how hard it was really to get a job in Formula One or in motorsport without having an engineering background. Like, you are business analytics, of course you can work wonders with data. So why do you think it's so hard without having that engineer background, even if you're not gonna, build anything, or you're not gonna make any decisions like about the design per se of the car.
Yeah, basically, what I see, I've been looking at job openings, of course, because it's my dream to work for a Formula One team, and most of the job openings are, yeah, in the field of engineering. But actually, recently I saw some data science positions coming up that
Ooh.
I'm trying to get in now. I'm trying to follow my dreams and trying to achieve my goals. So I think it's changing a little bit. There are more pure data science positions, and hopefully, let's see if I will make it into. I really hope.
We hope so too. We will definitely stay in touch for that. I'll probably like I already follow you on Instagram, I think. So yeah, I will probably just stay in touch. It's like, hey, did you get the job?
Yeah.
Hopefully you will get the job, because I really enjoyed what you did with just this few like things that you showed us, and also just look at how proud you were when you told us that you are like your model already predicted that Piastri was gonna be a good driver, like he was a good choice. I really really hope that you get the job, because I honestly think you deserve a Formula One job, Formula One spot.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you for inviting me to your pit talk. I really enjoyed to share, yeah, like my world of being a data scientist with you. I hope you learned some things. You
I
already
did.
had some good analysis, so that's really amazing. And I wish you all, yeah, all the best with your pit talk channel. And I will definitely follow you also in the future.
Thank you so much for everything. And thank you all for joining us. Let me just say this in Spanish. Gracias a todos por veniros. Por favor, quedaos porque quiero charlar un poquito con vosotros ahora después del Pit Talk. ¿Vale? Dejadme solo un momento que voy a despedir a Claudia. ¿Vale? Pero que me hace ilusión volver a hablar con vosotros, ¿vale? So yeah, thank you so much. Thank you for coming. It was so nice having you here. I had fun actually, just watching what you did with the data, and thank you for explaining. Really, thank you, and very very good luck with the future.
You too.
Okay,
Thank you.
thank you. Bye. We'll stay in touch. Okay, I'll text you now on Instagram. Okay, I'll DM you.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay.
Bye. Thanks.
Bye.